Hey everybody, welcome to Module 9. And in this module, we're going to talk about fiction writing. We're going to continue our study of fiction writing. And the topics of this module specifically are going to be voice and point of view. So let's start with voice. We're going to just do a quick run through in this video of these two topics, starting with voice. What is voice when you're talking about fiction? It's hard to define, but it is very central to what's happening in a story. It works on many levels within the story. So let's break down a few aspects of voice. Now, one aspect of voice is in something that seems quite clear and straightforward, and that is just the dialogue. That's the unique voices of each character when they actually speak. We also have voice in the aspect of the character's own inner voices. This is what characters tell themselves, the thoughts that we hear from them in a story. These will often reveal deeper truths and motivations and kind of the inner workings of characters. Now, there's also voice in terms of how the story is told, kind of away from the characters or separate from the characters. This is the narrator's voice, the choice of words, the overall tone, and even kind of how it looks on the page. Now, let's look at an example of voice in action. One great example that we have this week is the Dave Eggers story, After I Was Thrown in the River and Before I Drowned. I love this story. I am a dog person. In fact, right now, as I am recording this video, I have two dogs that are right here off screen. You may be hearing some noises that indicate there's something over there. I don't know if it's making it into my headphones or not, but I have an old guy that's trying to get into the screen right here. This is my old dog. He's a 10-year-old mutt, and I have a new puppy who is currently chewing on my shoes at under my feet here. But I was determined to get this video done, so they are participating, and it's really perfect that we have the Dave Eggers story, and we're talking about a dog's voice. Now, when you think of what a dog would sound like, if you were to describe what a dog's voice would be, it'd probably be the voice of this puppy right now who's trying to bite my fingers here off to the side. It's a loopy breathlessness. That's hard to say. A loopy breathlessness. That's how that voice has been described, especially in the Eggers story. Let's read a little piece from that story. Oh, I'm a fast dog. I'm fast, fast. It's true. And I love being fast. I admit it. I love it. You know, fast dogs, dogs that just run by and you say, damn, that's a fast dog. Well, that's me, a fast dog. I'm a fast, fast dog. Woo! Woo! That's a great dog voice, don't you think? I don't feel like I could create as great of a dog voice as Eggers has, and he maintains it all the way through that story. It's really fantastic. It immerses the reader in the world of what a dog's voice would sound like if they could speak. What I want you to do is I want you to go back to that story if you haven't already done this, and I want you to read it out loud and just hear that dog all the way through. Now, it is a sad story, and if you're a dog person like me, you might not love that part of it, but it's just so beautifully written, and you just love the dog so much through the whole thing. It's an excellent example of voice at work in a really distinct way in a story. Now, when it comes to developing your voice, what are some things that you can think about? Style is part of voice, but you don't want to force a particular style. You may think I have a particular style when I write, and I have to really keep my signature style in my stories. But I like to think of it as a more innate thing that comes about that we don't really think about, that we don't really have to consider or practice too much. We have a natural cadence or way that we convey ideas to people in writing. Our writing voice and our speaking voices, they can be different. My writing voice and my speaking voice are very different from each other. So the best advice that I like to give and that I've ever heard is just simply write. Your style, your voice is going to emerge naturally. And if you force your style, it's going to sound forced, it will sound practiced, and it will sound inauthentic. So you can think about voice and we can talk about voice and we can consider its importance. But when it comes to the actually writing, the actual writing, you don't necessarily have to think about it that much. Now let's talk about point of view. What is point of view in fiction? Point of view is seeing through another's consciousness, a character's consciousness, or a narrator's consciousness, or a voice's consciousness in a story. Point of view, or POV, is your tool for bringing readers inside perspectives that are different from their own. Choosing point of view usually comes very naturally for storytellers. I love this quote from Charles Baxter. It all depends on how you hear the story coming to you. If you've been writing, maybe you've had this experience or maybe you haven't, but if you've been writing for a bit, stories will start to come to you and you might hear how they're supposed to sound. The more you write, the more this will happen for you. And quite often, a story will come to you, a first line, a paragraph, an idea, and it will come to you in a particular point of view, especially the more you experiment with point of view. Now, let's talk about your options as far as point of view is concerned. Your first option is called first person point of view. In this point of view, you step into the character's head. You are limited to their knowledge and their perspective. Like in the Eggers story, we're limited to everything we get from inside that dog's mind. We're getting everything filtered through that dog's mind and that dog's experience. So it's first person point of view. It's always untrustworthy. A first person narrative is always untrustworthy because all perspectives are partial. You're not getting the full perspective of what is actually happening in the scene. You're only getting one person's perspective of it. This can create instant dramatic irony, and it's very ideal for people who are beginning to write because it's one of the easier POVs to write in. If you really want to explore this and have some beginning level fun with it, try to write a story from a child's point of view, and that will help you create unique voice and easy dramatic irony. It's a great place to start, or even if you're an experienced writer, it's a really fun exercise. Now, your next option for point of view is second person point of view. Now, this one is a little bit more unusual. It's become more common just kind of recently. When you look at the whole history of fiction writing, this is just something that people have been doing more, maybe in the last 20 years or so, especially in short fiction. But the second person point of view is conversational. It mirrors natural speech. And it goes beyond that, though. It's very specific. It uses the word you to refer to I. So think about when you're in a conversation and you're telling a story about something that happened to you, but instead of using I to tell the story, you say you. And so even explaining this point of view can get kind of confusing. But here's an example. I'm talking about myself, but I'm going to talk about myself in second person. So you're sitting at your kitchen table and you have two dogs and you're trying to record a video for your creative writing class. And you want it to be professional and you want to teach well, but your dogs are literally having a fight at your feet. You wonder, can your students hear it over the headphones? Can they hear the sound of the two growling dogs by your feet? Can they tell that the puppy is chewing on your pant leg? So there's your example. I'm talking about myself because that's literally what was just happening. But I put it on you. I used you to tell the story. So, like I said, it can be a very confusing point of view to even explain. But if you caught what I did when I told you the story of what was happening to me, but I used the you, then you got it. Okay. Now, um, one thing that this point of view is really effective for is if you have characters that are carrying shame and they're telling a shameful story. Um, the reason that this is effective is because your characters can tell their story by placing it on you, like on the you point of view. So, that is uh, maybe one way that you can think about it as a tool in certain situations. Now let's talk about probably, the a more one of the more common third person point of view. And there are a couple of ways to look at third person point of view. There's actually many ways to look at it, but we're going to focus on these two. There's close third person and then there's objective third person. Now, if you're in close third person, you are inside the character's mind. So you're speaking about the character in terms of you're calling them he, she, they, but you're inside their mind. And it has very similar limits to first person. Um, Distance is adjustable. We can be very close inside their mind and only seeing their thoughts, or we can be kind of out of their mind a little bit and seeing more of what happens around them. Um, Watch in the reading for examples of this close third. Now, objective third is a little different. The narrator in objective third person is more like a camera on the shoulder. So if a camera's on a shoulder, it can't see into the brain of the character, right? The camera is just right here watching and seeing everything the character sees and hearing everything the character hears. But it's not necessarily um, giving you any of the character's thoughts. It's not inside the character's head. Now let's look at some examples. Let's start with it. Let's start with that objective third person camera view on the shoulder. Okay, here's the scenario. A character named Alex nervously waits to give a speech in front of a crowded room. If you're an objective third, this is what it's going to sound like. Alex tapped his fingers against the podium. He stared at the rows of faces before him and cleared his throat. Now, notice that these sentences record only what can be observed externally: actions, gestures, and physical details. There's no mention of Alex's thoughts or emotion. Now, this is kind of preferable if you're focusing on showing and not telling, um, which is what we want to do when we write our fiction. Um, a lot of times, people who are character driven in their stories, writers who are very character driven, who like to write character but don't necessarily like to write plot, they will spend a lot of time inside a character's head. And if you're a person who does that and it undermines the power of your writing, trying to write an objective third person can help you with that. It can bring you outside of your character's brain and get you into the action of what's actually happening in the story. I say that because that's one of my big downfalls. I like to write character and I don't like to write plot as much. So I end up inside my characters' heads all the time and it gets real boring in there. I had a writing mentor who was just like, please, can something just happen in your stories? Please. Do I have to know what everybody's thinking all the time? And it's true. If you're in a story and all you're getting is character thought and you're just in someone's head the whole time, it's most of the time it's super boring. So, and believe me, I understand the tendency to do that because that's how I want to, that's where I'm comfortable. I like being inside people's heads and I don't like to get out into the world necessarily. So, um, I should probably be practicing what I preach and write some stories in objective third person. Now, um, if we're in close third, we are not an objective point of view. This is for comparison. Now, this is if you're inside Alex's head. Alex wished he could disappear. His mind raced with doubts about the speech. Now, these sentences reveal inner thoughts and feelings, which aren't permitted in objective third. Now, if your goal is to reveal inner thoughts and feelings, then a more close third can be a good option for you. Now, there are some more options. There's the omniscient narrator or the omniscient point of view, and this is just what the word omniscient means. It knows everything. So, this narrator may know everything, but what's really hard here is that it's tough to keep the voice consistent because what an omniscient narrator can do is it can pop in and out of people's heads. And you can be inside one character's head, and then you're inside another character's head, and then you're inside another character's head, and then you're showing all the action around. And it sounds wonderful because it sounds like you have ultimate freedom to do whatever you want, but it's very difficult to do well because with great freedom comes great responsibility. You have to wield that narrator in a way that makes sense to your reader. And a lot of times in a story with an omniscient narrator, that bouncing in and out of people's heads and in and out of situations, it just becomes too much and it's hard to follow. So it's rare to see a story with an omniscient narrator that works very well. There are also stories that try to run with multiple POVs. Now, in the short fiction, the flash fiction that we're writing here in our class, that just isn't enough space for multiple points of view. Now, quite often you will see novels written from multiple point of views where you've got one chapter you're with this character and then the next chapter you're with this character and so on and so forth, and sometimes it'll just bounce back and forth between two characters, or you might go all the way through the whole family. I just finished a novel that I think every character except for the mom in the story was a point of view character, and you would get a chapter from everybody's point of view. There were times I liked it, there were times I didn't. But it was the family's whole story, so that way you get more of the family. But that is more of a novel technique. If you're writing a novel, you can do that, but within flash fiction, you can't, you really can't do multiple points of view. It's very tempting, but it's very risky. And so um, start by limiting yourself to one point of view and the point of view, make it the point of view that's best for the story you're telling. Key takeaways. Voice and point of view deeply shape the story's world. They're very important. But also, they're very instinctive things. And they're things that kind of come to you, and you have to play with them a little bit. Sometimes you'll nail it on the first try. Sometimes for me, I'll write a story from first person and I'll be like, yep, that's it. That's how it's supposed to be. I wrote a story years and years ago, though, and it ended up being a great story that ended up winning a prize and this and that. I can't tell you how many times I changed the point of view. I did it first person, I did it third person, I did it second person. I just took it through the ringer as far as point of view went because every point of view provided something different. And I had to decide which version I liked the best. And so sometimes it comes naturally and you know right away what your point of view is going to be and your voice. And then other times you have to work with it a little bit. Voice is layered. There are several different layers of voice within the story: dialogue, inner thought, narrative style. There's a lot of different things that go into it. Point of view controls access to your character's experiences. That one's really important. That's a really key takeaway, obviously, because point of view has to be a controlling aspect. And so your choice of point of view will control what you get to say in your story, what gets to happen in some ways. So try different points of view, but always aim for clarity. Now, As we go into the rest of the module, you'll see that you have some opportunity to discuss point of view and voice coming up in the discussion. So, as always, let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to just seeing what you come up with this week.